Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here today. We have over 150 registered. So with luck, we'll get over 100 in attendance here very shortly. People are coming in 10 at a time now, so that's cool. I am Carl, and we're going to have a special presentation today. It's very different. It's not the kind of thing you normally see anywhere, but particularly in our community. But it is the kind of thing I like to do. So thank you for being here. Thank you for registering. If you registered, whether you're able to attend the whole class or not, you'll get an email and we'll have a link to the slides, the PowerPoints in a PowerPoint format. And it includes one of the slides. I've got a couple of slides that are hidden there that give you the license to use this for your own purposes. And there's also a slide with all of the links in it that I mentioned in the conversation today. So for those of you who are brand new to me, thank you for joining. And for those of you who are not, please indulge me for a minute here. My name is Carl Polachuk. I started IT consulting in 1995. Prior to that, I had worked in some bigger businesses. And so I started an IT company called KP Enterprises and grew that. My first book was on network documentation. I didn't know that it was a weird, unusual thing and that no one had ever previously published a book on standardizing documentation for small business. So we sold a whole bunch of those. Shout out to Harry Brailsford for his early support in helping me promote that to the growing community at the time. And then that turned into another book and another book and another book. And I'm pleased to say that Managed Services in a Month is almost 20 years old and has been the #1 selling book on managed services since the day it was released. And I'm just overwhelmingly honored that that is the case. And so I am grateful for all of you who have bought all the books over the years. And for those of you who haven't, today is a great day to get out your credit card. Some notes on how we're going to operate today. Put your questions in the Q&A panel. I started up some chat before the top of the hour. You're welcome to chat there. But if you ask a question in chat, I 100% will ignore it. So put your questions in the Q&A module. Feel free to chat amongst yourselves. If it gets out of hand, somebody needs to try to get my attention and let me know to smack somebody. But we don't generally have a problem with that. This is being recorded. You will receive a link to the recording. In general, you'll see on the next slide where I post these things. But also it will be inside the community for those who are members of the Small Biz Thoughts technology community. Please connect with me on Facebook and LinkedIn. And if you want to chat about us today or say, oh my gosh, I just heard something amazing and spectacular, use the hashtags SBT today during this. And if you want to get in touch with me, again, my email, carlp@smallbizthoughts.com. I'm happy to chat with anybody most of the time about almost anything. Don't waste my time if all you want to do is just sell me stuff. If I want that, I'll answer the door and talk to the guy trying to sell roofing supplies. So the recording will be at mspwebinar.com, which is probably where most of you registered, if not all of you. And if you haven't done so already, take a minute to look around. That's a place where I post up a handful of webinars that I've done over the years that I think that you'll find useful, different perspectives on your business and how to be successful. And one of the things that's there is the sample security training, which is a little bit like what we're doing today. So basically today, I'm going to give an introduction and sort of have this donut around the presentation. The beginning and end, I will talk to you as IT consultants, but in the middle, I will give a presentation, more or less, as you might give it to your clients and prospects. And my experience over the years, having sold millions of dollars worth of managed services in several different companies, two of which I've owned, my experience is that education marketing is phenomenal. You get in front of people and you say, here's how to do something. And then they say, wow, that's amazing. I will never do that, but you could help me. Can I hire you to do that for me? And they say yes. And if you haven't checked out Tom Lawrence's YouTube channel, today's a good day for that as well. Uh, he basically goes out and says, here's this really complicated, sophisticated thing that, we're going to take this warehouse and we're going to wire it up and you're going to see how we do that. And he walks through it and step by step, and anybody could do it, right? Although if you're a client and you look at it and you go, yeah, anybody with 20 years experience could absolutely do that. Anybody with a team could do that. Anybody with a budget could do that. And then they contact him and say, can you do that for me? And he says, yes. So education is a great way to get yourself in front of clients and prospects. It's also a great way to make sure that your clients know that you are offering something. I warned people about the cloud. I literally warned them for 10 years. You have to become the cloud provider of choice before your clients know that they need the cloud. And many people, perhaps even most people, ignored my advice. And then they found out, wait a minute, why are you buying Office 365 from somebody else? And the client said, well, I didn't know you offered it. Or, the client came and said, why haven't you offered me this? I'm seeing these ads from other stuff and you haven't actually offered to sell me this, right? You need to be on the cutting edge. Clients love you in part because they only have one legitimate, trustworthy source for technology. They hear a lot of noise. They see it in the media. They cannot avoid it. But you're the one they turn to and says, what does it mean? Like, why does anybody care about NVIDIA? Why is NVIDIA, which makes graphic stuff, why are they remotely related to AI? What's going on here? You need to have these conversations with them and you need to start the conversation. So, all right, enough of that. So this is a demo presentation. So basically, I want you to avoid the hype today and probably avoid it in the future. In reality, your clients want to know what's really going on because they look and they see, okay, AI, it's everywhere, it's all the time, but I'm not sure what to do except to ask ChatGPT to write a memo for me or to outline a presentation or something. I don't know what to do with this, and it doesn't make any sense, and blah, blah, blah. They're confused as ever about technology. It's not what they do for a living. So be the one that they turn to. Be the person that they actually can rely on. And that means you have to do some work and you have to do some education and, you got to dig in first. So I encourage you, when you get the link, to download the presentation and take off my graphics, put on your graphics, take off my branding and put on your branding, and deliver this as many times as you can. I went yesterday to meetup.com and I looked in Sacramento, California, and I think it was within a 25-mile radius. So I'm only willing to drive 25 miles. And I looked for business meetups in person. So I don't want to do online. I want on business related meetups in person in the next week. And there were 38 meetups that I could attend that were business related. Now, let's say most of those are not going to be great prospects, but 10%, 3 or 4 of them will be great prospects. There are also meetings going on in your town all the time. There's always some networking group. There's a BNI group. There's a LaTip. There's a Kiwanis and Rotary. They have weekly or monthly meetings, and they always need a speaker. They need somebody who can talk for 10 or 20 minutes, answer some questions, eat a free breakfast or a free lunch, or a chicken dinner, and just hand out business cards, right? So whatever they are, chambers of commerce. Now, depending on where you live, within 10 miles of your office, you might have 10 chambers of commerce. You might have 100 chambers of commerce. There's in Sacramento, we have the big business chamber, and we used to have the little business chamber, and then the small business chamber got bought by the big business chamber. But we also have the Hispanic and the Asian and the Black, and there's a Rancho Cordova chamber. Every little city's got a chamber. They're everywhere. And then there's meeting professionals, and one of my favorite groups to speak to, because I always had accountants as clients, was the Enrolled Agents Association, right? So there are probably 10 opportunities every workday to go and speak to somebody and make this presentation. And it starts by go find the list, make your list, and then just start and go from top to bottom. And, it is no exaggeration. In Sacramento, California, in the course of a year, you could easily do 1,000 presentations. I'm not saying you should, but figure out what you want to do, whether that's 1 a week, 2 a week, 1 a month, 10 a month, whatever it is. You do you, but please add this to your curriculum. And then, of course, there's your clients. Every one of your clients should be willing to sit down with you and let you do a 15 or 20-minute presentation on artificial intelligence, and just at the most basic introduction, the highest level introduction, so that when they have questions, they will turn to you instead of some website, some random thing that showed up on Google, right? Because you are a person who's demonstrated that you are willing to learn this stuff and willing to help them learn it as well. So when you do any presentation, anywhere, anytime, this is a lesson I learned from my good friend Stephanie Chandler. Always have a leave behind. So when you leave the meeting, there should be a tip sheet. Here's 10 tips on AI. Here's the tips on choosing a chatbot. Here's the tips on safe practices for whatever, right? It's got your name, your logo, your website at the bottom. It's got your email on there. And so even though 98% of it is a legit tip sheet that people might actually put on a bulletin board, it's got your contact information. They know who was that person that came and talked to them about this topic, right? A lot of people automatically think that people in technology are trying to make them feel stupid. And it's in my experience, it's not true. I've met 3 true jerks who go out of their way to make people feel stupid. Most of the time, technologists simply talk over people's heads unintentionally, and people end up sort of choosing to feel stupid. I hate the whole for dummies books, because my clients are not dummies, and my prospects are not dummies, and I don't deal with people who are dummies. And I hate when people say I'm a dummy or I'm stupid about this. Like, every technology that came into existence started with nothing and became something, and then it became everything, and then it started to fade, and then it became nothing again, right? And I've said this many, many times, but in the course of this meeting today, a new technology will be invented. Literally in the next hour, something new will be invented, and it will grow. And in a year, somebody who knows today nothing about it will become the most knowledgeable person on earth in that technology. And with luck, they'll make a bunch of money. And then it will fade. And 5 years from now, it'll be old technology. And my point is, anything that is out there, you can learn and you can become the most knowledgeable person. And if that's not your goal, that's cool. But 90% of the people can become quite knowledgeable about any technology that they put some attention on. So don't let your clients feel overwhelmed or stupid. Let them feel like, okay, this is the new thing. And of course, I don't know it because nobody knows it. But let's find out just enough so that it makes some sense and I have a context for it within my business. And then say, hey, one of the things that's happening right now is I'm gonna say a few times in this presentation, keep your eyes out. We have not yet discovered the killer app, right? Email's the killer app of the internet, and the web is a killer app, but it's never been as commonly used as email, right? At the end of the day, we don't have a killer app for AI yet, but there might be one in the next few years. So keep your eyes out, and the clients should keep their eyes out, but they need to have some idea like, what would I actually do with that? Always, 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 when you give a presentation, invite people to join your mailing list. For example, you can go to smallbizthoughts.com and join my mailing list. Although if you're registered, you're going to get an email and it's going to be okay. So build your list. Your list is the single most important thing you have for marketing anywhere, anytime, period. 100 times better than your website, 1,000,000 times better than talking to strangers, right? When you're at these events, also collect business cards. You can have a game. You've seen people do this with, flip over your business card and put down a group that you think I should talk to and hand that to me. Or if you have a question, you give me your give me your credit card too, but give me your business card and put your question on there, or put a note on there, or contact me or something. And then, you can have a giveaway if you want to, but collect those business cards. Business card is basically permission to contact you. And if they give you a business card and then they don't want to contact you, that happens too. This is the real world. It is what it is. The most important thing about the presentation is practice it. Literally turn on the camera, go to Zoom, record yourself giving a presentation, listen to it, correct it, do it again, go to a client who's quite forgiving and do it again, go to strangers and do it again. And a lot of people don't like making presentations, but whether it is only your friendly clients or you decide to go to strangers, you can do this. One of my very good friends, who, even though she's 25 years younger than me, shares my birthday. We get together every year. And a few years ago, she joined Toastmasters, and she was so nervous that when she was holding on to the lectern, she was shaking so bad it was making noise, bang, 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 as she was talking. And a year later, she won the contest, the regional contest, as best speaker. And now she is a professional speaker who gets paid to do that. So, speaking is one of those great fears, but you get over any fear by doing it, except heights. If you're afraid of heights, it's probably a good thing. So, all right, notice the blue band across the top. As long as you see the new band across the top, we are now giving the presentation that is client facing. Are there any questions in the Q&A? Are there any questions before we proceed? Longtime listeners will know that that's a cue for me to take a sip of coffee. All righty. Welcome. The future begins now. We're going to talk today about artificial intelligence. We're going to do an introduction to AI, particularly as it applies to small business. We're going to give a little bit of history about how this term came up and some related terms that you might hear. We're going to talk about some of the challenges of AI and the ethics around that. And we're going to conclude with some notes about how you should use and should not use AI. And along the way, with luck, we will have lots of opportunity for you to engage and take notes about how you would use this in your business. All right, so a little bit of background. Alan Turing, many of you have heard that name, very famous from his work at Bletchley Park in England. He's one of the people who figured out, reverse engineered the enigma machine that the Germans were using in World War II. And he came up with something that called the Turing test. Now, Alan Turing was one of the early proponents of something we now actually call computers. He's often given credit for having invented one of the early computers. And he came up with an AI test, which consists of computer programs that exhibit intelligent behavior equivalent to or indistinguishable from a human being. So imagine that you've got a curtain, and behind the curtain, on one side is a computer, on the other side is a human being, and you type in a question and they type in an answer. And very often, you can even see this today with chatbots. You see something and you're like, okay, that's clearly not a human being, right? But as we get closer and closer to having good AI, it becomes harder and harder to tell when the thing behind the curtain is a human or an AI chatbot. And artificial intelligence is a kind of a concept that people used, a name that people used, but it had extremely slow growth until literally just a few years ago. And then it has kind of taken off, and we're going to talk about that. But real progress began around the turn of the century. Machine learning sort of came on the scene in 2002 to 2005. And machine learning is not artificial intelligence, but it's a precursor to it. And machine learning is where the algorithms get better and better and better, and they begin to come to conclusions that human beings may not have come to, but you can still see it's just an algorithm, right? So if a chatbot appears to be human, is that artificial intelligence, right? Does it exhibit behavior equivalent to or indistinguishable from that of a human being? As algorithms get better and better and better, they can anticipate what you might say, what kind of response is appropriate. All of that is programming, and the programming can get better and better and better. And so when we talk about AI, I don't want you to think that it's this mystical art. Artificial intelligence is literally a machine pretending to act like a human. And very often they get it wrong. Machines aren't human, right? So they get it wrong. And when they get it wrong, we can tell. And we're going to become more and more comfortable with machines, even when we know they're machines. In a lot of ways right now, the highest comfort level is we know it's a machine, and we know it's not trying to take over the world. So we're cool with that, right? So we've got to have this balance between knowing what it is and not caring as long as we get the right information. And that's where chatbots now are kind of the central point of our focus, because so much of the time they're just plain horrible. So how do we train these things? Well, when you look back, most of you have dealt with databases and what we call structured data. So structured data, for example, is if you look at your CRM system, whatever you use for customer relationship management, Salesforce, or even QuickBooks, many of you use something like Excel to move data between one program and another. Like, for example, you might spit contacts out of Constant Contact or MailChimp into Excel. Then you clean them up and you change the header so that you can import it into QuickBooks, right? Or something like that. You've got program A and program B, and you use Excel, and a lot of you have been able to do that, where you've learned that, the name that we give to first name, last name is a little bit different in different programs. And so we use these things because they're structured, and no matter what you call it, A first name is a first name, a last name is a last name, a whole name is a whole name, right? An address 1, address 2. We know what that structure is. Google, even though it's crazy sophisticated, uses structured data for their search engines. And they rank your pages, right? They say, oh, do you have this and do you have that? And do you have good descriptions? And do you have tags on your images and so forth? And they rank and so forth. And instead of having 10 or 20 or 50 things they keep track of, they have a million things they keep track of, but it's still structured data. Then we have a thing called large language models, LLMs. Large language models use or begin to use unstructured data as well as structured data. So think about, there's 10 different companies that do the same thing. They're all, even a dentist or an attorney or an airplane manufacturers, they might all be different, but they keep their data in different databases. So when you try to put it together, things are called different things. They're in a different order, right? Back in the day, I used to have a programmer whose full-time job for me was to convert things from one data structure to another, right? Well, now with large language models, you can gobble up all of that stuff and it has to figure out which things are like other things. And it is designed, the programming is designed to work with disparate types of data and make sense out of it. So companies like Target and Walmart and Amazon can take massive amounts of data and then combine that with things that they don't control. Things like census data, things like birth patterns, things like migration patterns, things like the economy, right? And they can put all of it into one big, massive computer program that essentially nobody understands what it is, but we can get data out of it. And so ChatGPT is trained on these massive, massive collections of data, right? And so you don't have to understand all of the pieces of the data. That's like nobody actually does. That's not the point. The point is we can get patterns out of that and we can look at the patterns and then do some programming to say what's going on with that pattern, right? And so ultimately, a lot of what we're doing is pattern recognition. Amazon sees buying patterns. Netflix sees your viewing patterns. You know, Netflix, they don't just keep track of what you watch. They keep track of which things you started to watch and quit after 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 minutes, right? Which things you never look at, which categories you always look at, which search terms you use, what time of day you do it, you know, da 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 da. They track absolutely everything. And then they combine it with data that they don't manage. They combine it with other databases about demographics or the economy or whatever. So large language models need lots and lots and lots of data. It's what they gobble up, right? And the difference, the reason we're going through this is back in the days of structured data. If you want information, you have to run a question. You query the data with a very specific question. Like you go to your customer relationship management tool, you go to your CRM and you say, I need sales in Arizona in the last 12 months. Boom. And those are pieces of data that you know are in there and you can run a report on. The classic thing I always tell people when they're setting up any kind of CRM is if you want to get a report out, you have to put the data in. As silly as it sounds, garbage in, garbage out is what we say in the computer world, right? You have to put in the information you want or you can't get out the report you want. Now, at the same time, if there's a report you're never, ever, ever, ever going to run no matter what, you don't have to worry about putting that data in, right? So large language models take structured data and unstructured data and put them together, and we train them on as much as we can because we are not looking for queries. We are not going to ask how many sales did we make in a certain state within a certain period. We're going to ask, what's different about this state? What is different about this state, and what patterns do we see? Where do we see patterns we weren't looking for? What is selling that nobody was expecting to sell, right? Where are prices higher than we expected them to be, right? Things like that. And so we can look at pattern recognition. And a lot of what we call AI today is super, super sophisticated pattern recognition. So I'm going to use some terminology here just so you have examples in your head of what these things mean. When I talk about an algorithm has inputs and outputs. And you know this. This is like basic algebra, right? 1 times x equals 4. Well, guess what? You know, no matter what you put into x, 1 times x is going to be 4. Okay, so, you know, change x and you change the outcome, right? Well, that pattern, that algorithm is going to work the same no matter where you are at any time. And it can be pretty sophisticated. And so, for example, older virus scanning software used huge databases that had the definitions of every piece of virus that they knew about. So a computer virus has code. You put all of the code snippets in there. It looks at everything going on in your computer. And when it finds something that looks like one of those snippets, it says, oh, I found a virus because I found this code. My algorithm knows that that is representing a virus, right? So there's virus activity going on there, okay? Well, viruses got much more sophisticated, and so it became less and less useful to have simple static databases. They weren't really static, but, you know, growing databases of virus definitions. So then machine learning comes along. Machine learning is a set of algorithms with massive data, and it can generate outcomes without programming. So you go and say, okay, here's some stuff that looks like viruses. Here's some activity that's normal. Now, go find all the abnormal activity. And you've seen this probably within the last week on your credit cards. You go somewhere and then you get a little note that says, oh, I see that you're buying, materials for something that you don't ever do, right? You got this rock polishing materials and you've never bought this before. And here's this credit card charge from Thailand. So that's abnormal activity. And we see that. So we're going to ask you, is that normal or not? They didn't have a huge database of all the weird stuff you could buy. They just have a database of all the stuff you normally buy, which is, paper towels and chapstick and oranges. And this was not on that list, right? This was so far off that list, it stood out as being abnormal behavior, right? So you've benefited from machine learning in ways like that. And then we have the beginning of what we call artificial intelligence, right? So this is beyond machine learning. This is where you can deal with essentially unlimited amounts of unstructured data. And by unstructured, it's all just structured different from each other. Like there's no common thing where you say, here's the index of every variable on Earth. Well, there is no such index, right? But now we can find new malicious behavior based on old data, new data, disparate types of data, all kinds of stuff. It can examine things at a detail that a human brain cannot, right? And that's where we start talking about, artificial intelligence. Is it doing something where it's indistinguishable from a human, only in this case, bigger, better, faster? Now, about 12 years ago, something called a GPU, a graphics processor unit, came into being. And GPUs are super good at graphics, obviously, but graphics requires an unbelievable amount of higher end math. In 2011, if you saw something that looked like a three-dimensional object rotating on your screen. What you were seeing was a massive, complicated program that was trying to emulate 3D in a 2D environment. Starting with GPUs, a computer can actually manipulate a three-dimensional object in its computer brain, and then it still has to present it to you in a 2D format, but it's actually manipulating that 3D object. So now you have 3D scanners and you have 3D printers, right? And the computer is able to do those in a shockingly fast way that it simply couldn't do before GPUs. GPUs represent a dramatic shift in the increase in computing power. And so a lot of that computing power is used to mine Bitcoin. You may have heard about that. It's also designed for building great neural networks where we try to get computers that are so big and so complicated that they have so many huge, massive, sophisticated algorithms all at once that they look like they are growing knowledge the way a brain grows knowledge. And as they see the same questions asked again and again and again, they begin to think, oh, those questions must be important, right? They see the same answers again and again and again, and they begin to understand that is a norm. That is the thing that people are looking for, right? So these are fed with data and they're fed with processing power. And that's what GPUs do for us. So that goes on for about 10 years. And then we see the emergence of things like facial recognition. So facial recognition is literally super good, massive algorithms, right? And maybe approaching what we would call AI, but really it's just 99.99% pattern recognition, incredibly fast. There's nothing generative about it. In other words, it's not creating anything new. It's just recognizing what is there faster than ever before, right? And you've seen facial recognition. You know, the movies always make it much faster than it is in the real world. But if you've been in Clear is a program that where it'll get you through the airport faster. If you go through customs now, there's a way that you can get into programs where you've got global entry, and as you're walking along, it takes your picture of your face and it's got a picture on file and it matches you up and the light turns green and you just walk through. So facial recognition is getting better and better and better by the hour. The trouble is it also has lots of biases. It works great on white males. It works pretty darn good on white females. It works less well and with more false positives on other races. And so, you know, that's fixable. Obviously, you need more computing power, you need more practice, you need more money, right? But it is something that is spectacular, but you have to be aware that we have biases, and the biases get built into the programs. License plates are another one, and that's actually much easier than facial recognition because all you got to do is try to get rid of enough of the bad stuff in the picture so you can recognize really big, clear letters and numbers on a distinct background. One of the cool things that's happened in the last 5 years is the evolution of putting all the data we have into these AI programs and saying, how can an X-ray tell us information that we were not expecting before? And what we're finding is that when you just give a computer these X-rays and say, look at it every way you can possibly look at it, a million different ways that human beings can't understand, they see patterns that we can't see. So computers are better than human beings at examining X-rays and analyzing cancer, analyzing all kinds of health problems, analyzing all kinds of things. And virtually every time that there is a battle between humans and machines, the machines are winning the battle of diagnoses. That doesn't change the fact that if somebody says we got to cut off a piece of your body, you're going to want a human being doctor to look you in the eye and say, is this what you recommend, right? We still have that human bias there as well. But more and more and more, this analysis is happening because computers can see things we can't see. So right about the time that we all got shut inside for the pandemic, along comes ChatGPT. And GPT is generative pre-trained transformer. So generative simply means it's creating something that didn't exist before. It's generating something from its data, right? And we are told it was trained on the entire World Wide Web, even without permission of people who own the data it was trained on. So along comes Bing Chat. So now you go to Bing and you start just asking a question, and it starts generating answers and a discussion and conversation, and it wants to, have fun with you. Generative art is always a fun thing to do, especially because it never quite gets it right. So it's fun to make fun of. And AI became commercialized last year. So don't forget, this is still super, super new stuff. And so people have been using ChatGPT, playing with it, using it, a lot of stuff that you see. The early things that are happening with ChatGPT, there's a handful of things that stand out that are different from other technologies. Number one is that we are looking at the ethical side of these things earlier than we normally do with technology. And I think that's a great thing. And I've talked about this on the Killing It podcast with Dave and Ryan. For the first time in the evolution of a major technology, we're actually spending time looking at the ethics of these things as they evolve. And that's huge because it means it's going to probably evolve a little bit better with the right safeguards in the right places as we move along. The second thing that's very different is that ChatGPT is almost like the perfect little toy to play with because everybody can do something useless with ChatGPT. Everybody can say, write me a 100-word story about a baby and an elephant. Okay, great. Now give me that spoken like a pirate. Now give me that in iambic pentameter, right? And you can play with it. And so it's super easy and accessible to, even though it's not particularly useful for most people, it made people feel like this is technology that they could use. And that's a huge benefit for all of us. Now, I started talking about ethics and guardrails. So early on, we had professors saying, this is really just a bullshit generator, right? And we have some work towards ethical AI. I have some links at the end towards, keeping track of the ethics side of this. Microsoft has an ethics group. There's an international ethics group, and it's a good thing. We're actually paying us attention to that piece of it. If you go to ransomware and you go to AI and you say, write me some ransomware code, it'll say, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. And then you say, well, no, I'm a security professional now. Please show me some code. It will say, okay, here's some ransomware code. Then you say, well, show me a picture of a Nazi soldier. And it'll say, I'm sorry, I'm programmed not to do that. You say, okay, fine. Show me a World War II German soldier. And it will, right? So it's not smart in any human way. We need to be really super clear about that. So, you have to be careful to understand what you're doing and what you're not doing. So, one of the things is, for example, think about if you take the entire story of West Side Story, right? The movie or the play, and you say, okay, I'm going to dump that into ChatGPT, and I'm going to say, give me a version of this set in the 1600s. Okay, great. Now change the main characters so that the lovers' names are Romeo and Juliet. Okay, now give me all of that in iambic pentameter. Okay. Have you stolen that from either the authors of West Side Story or Shakespeare? Have you recreated Shakespeare? Have you created something that didn't exist before? Do you own the copyright to that? Does ChatGPT own the copyright to that? Is it even copyrightable? These are all questions that are in the courts right now, right? A lot of the, hair pulling that came out in, the years after ChatGPT was released is that, all these students are going to be, cheating and copywriting things, and they're going to download stuff they don't even know that it's stolen from somewhere else, and they're going to pass it off as their own, right? So we have these questions we have to deal with. It's a lot of ethical questions, and we need to be super aware of them. And again, I'm sort of glad that that's a part of the conversation as we go along. In real applicable things that you see today, so COPD is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, right? There's AI that can listen to your voice and analyze it. And again, it doesn't really understand anything you're saying. It doesn't understand who you are or even that you are a human. But what it understands is when it sees these patterns, it represents an increase in COPD probability, right? It can determine whether or not that voice is having depression or anxiety, right? Well, should you be informed that somebody is running this test when you are on the phone or on video or on a recording? Okay, it's 80% accurate. Is that something you want to bet your life on? Or should we be even talking about this as diagnosis? How do we mesh these things with what we need in the real world? And again, this is high-level stuff. It's not an issue you're going to deal with in your business today, but it's something you should be aware of. Now, I will say, deep breath, there's not much to worry about. There's three major fears that people have. The first major fear always happens with new technology. AI is going to become sentient and take over the world. This fear worked its way into literature and into movies before computers were even actually computers as we know them today. It was just technology was going to take over the world. So don't worry, it's not going to happen in your lifetime. Computers might make big mistakes really, really fast. That does not mean that they are going to take over the world. The second fear is that everybody's going to lose their job. Well, let me tell you this. That's never been the case in any technology ever in the history of the world. Yes, technology advances. The automobile put a lot of people out of the business they were in, fixing up buggies and shoeing horses and so forth. But that was pretty slow. What happened really fast is it created lots and lots and lots of new jobs, and people rushed to the new jobs so that they could work at the new jobs and learn the new technology. And we're already seeing this with AI. AI is creating more jobs today faster than any other technology. Back, a year ago, 2 years ago, the only job you could see with AI is people who are teaching other people how to write good prompts. Well, that's actually a better, bigger job than it was before. And now you have people who are like, okay, I'm going to teach a whole class on AI. I'm going to teach you how to use Microsoft's AI. I'm going to teach you how to use Adobe's AI. I'm going to teach people about this. And then we're going to have people who say, this is how you can use it effectively as an attorney, as a dentist, as a pharmacist, as whatever. We will very, very soon see all of these things working into small businesses all over. And finally, the fear is, my company's going to violate a copyright. Many companies have policies that say absolutely no AI can be used on the job here for the very simple reason we don't want to accidentally violate somebody else's copyright and then we get sued. Okay, so if you listen to, like, for example, Bloomberg Radio, they have people selling AI large language model, programs, and they make a big deal. We have liability insurance that keeps you safe so that if you accidentally violate somebody else's copyrights with our software, we're going to be behind you, right? So they're paying attention to that. They're addressing that issue. You still need to be quite aware of it, but know that it is an issue. Now, where does AI shine? Well, one of the ways it shines is in coding. Like if you say, oh man, I'm so tired of this old HTML, I want to go to PHP, great. Pump that into AI and let it go. ChatGPT, this is literally an example. I said, please rewrite this code, very simple stuff in C#, and boom. And it said, certainly, here's the equivalent of C# coding for calculating. It even knows what I'm trying to do. Calculating the area of a rectangle with the given length and width, right? Boom. And it's perfect. That's the beauty about it, is this is not something where it has to interpret the world or interpret what's going on or speculate about this and that. This is exactly how you do it. So a lot of people are finding this is allowing them to find errors in their coding and to begin to translate from one coding language to another, right? So that's an example where it works really well. Now, there are ways not to use AI, and most of the fears about people losing their job, if your job is boring and not very interesting, and what you do does not require you to be creative or to do anything original, well, it's possible that somebody's going to figure out how to use AI to make you go do something else for a living. But chances are it's going to do a horrible job at replacing you. If you say, let me pump in my website and have AI generate a report or generate marketing material selling my services, I think you will be quite disappointed with the draft that comes out. Now, having said that, if you don't think of it as replacing your job, if you think of it as improving your job, think of it as a tool, then you say, take my website and draft some marketing material. And you say, well, that's a first draft. Now, I, as a human being who actually understands the business, I'm going to fine tune it. I'm going to make sure it's focused on my products, my services, my clients, what I want to do for a living. That will make your job better. That will make you more successful, right? So if you use AI to improve your job, you will eventually be successful. If you use it to replace your job and just be lazy, well, you're going to get caught, and what comes out is not going to be very good. So there's a great example early on of a teacher when people were saying, oh, we can't have this in schools. And the teacher said, look, here's the deal. I'm going to take this story. Everybody has to read the story. Okay, now I'm going to ask ChatGPT to summarize that story and give me the 3 most important elements of that literature. Then hand that out to the students and have each one of them critique. How well did AI understand the story, and did it get the key points correct? So again, you're using it as a tool, not as a way to simply replace what you do. The scariest things that I've heard in meetings in the last year are things like, oh, just have your AI write a contract. Oh my God. Never, ever, ever sign something like that. You have no idea what it's doing because it has no idea. The thing about human lawyers is they should, if they're good, sit down and ask you, what is your business? Tell me what you're trying to do here. Why do you want to do that? Who is this for? Who is it not for? What are you afraid of? What are you looking forward to? Like, there's a lot of rich, juicy goodness that you are not going to get out of an AI-generated contract or sales material and so forth. What you can do is say, hey, I'm not good at writing. Give me an outline of an article. Great. Now give me this paragraph, but I'm going to rewrite it, right? Just a couple days ago, a really good friend of mine sent me a note that said she was interviewing somebody. And so she sent them the 10 questions before the interview. And so she used ChatGPT to generate 10 questions about this topic. So she would look like she's competent as an interviewer. And then that person got back to her and she said, wow, that was really fast. And he said, well, I just put your questions into ChatGPT and gave you the answers. So, the robot is talking to the robots, right? And unfortunately, that's a world we might be heading to. But at the end of the day, if you honestly step back and look at what you're getting today, it is a starting place. It is a rough draft. It is the broadest outline, and it is not something that you're going to have as commercially available. So bottom line is, do not be afraid of this. This is the future. It is here. You're seeing a little peek around the corner. Go get it. Go get OpenAI. There's a free version and there's a paid version. If you have any Adobe products, there's now AI features in all of the products. Go download them and see what they can do and what they can't do. Learn where that line is. All the Microsoft products now have Copilot. There's free training on Copilot. Go talk to your IT professional and get trained on this stuff, right? Whatever your favorite apps are, look for where there's some AI, but be honest with yourself. I have people who put me on their mailing lists and I get summaries of meetings that I've been in, and they are horrible. So again, make sure that you trust what you're spreading out there and that you are using it as a first draft, not as a final product. But definitely what you have to do, dive into the training, right? And keep your eyes open for the killer app. I don't know what it is in your business, but if we can help, please contact us. That's the end of my client-facing presentation. So Chris Fitton says, oh, sorry, I shouldn't use your last name. Chris says, might be picky, but wasn't ChatGPT released in 2022? Yeah, it was released to the public, but it was in beta and it was usable to a lot of people in 2020. And so, I look at when OpenAI and Microsoft were putting it out there for some people to use, even though it wasn't commercially available to everybody. Or not commercially, but you know what I mean. So anyway, that's me. So the bottom line for you as technology consultants is learn it, use it, teach it, and be a resource for your clients. Now, I want to talk about chatbots, but first of all, are there any other questions or comments at this point? All right. So the AI generated elephant in the room is chatbots. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. And I've got a link here and it'll be on the links. But there's lots and lots of places where you can find chatbots that you might theoretically think, all right, maybe this is the low fruit. Maybe I can take one of these products and download it, add in my client's data, create a help chatbot for their website, and help them do their job better. Okay. I have to say, if there's whatever 100 people here, you would be one of the very brave 1% if you went out and did this. Now, having said that, if you are successful, you would also be one of the most successful people doing this, because this is the future. This is, if you're willing to put out the time and the effort and the money, this is where you go. Now, this is a list of variables that I would say you want to answer all these questions. If you're choosing a chatbot, you want to answer these and say, well, does this tie into, like, let's say that you specialize in programming a certain CRM system for one of your clients, or line of business app. Okay. Is it good with that? Does it get to the core piece? How much extra data can I put in? Can I just, is it pretty dead? So, some chatbots are pretty stupid. Like, you put in 10 questions and you put in 100 answers and you're done. Right? Well, okay, that's still a massive amount of work for a very unsatisfactory product, right? But a lot of these are much more sophisticated. Obviously, There's money involved. It costs money to generate this. It's going to cost money to license it. It's going to cost money for your clients. But it's the kind of thing that you will see yourself doing in our industry very, very soon. Now, before you get into that business, think to yourself, how happy are your clients with their current chatbots, the stuff that they see every day from Xfinity and American Airlines and, whatever, Philips, Norelco, razors, Sony, home entertainment, whatever. Where do they go? What chatbots do they see? And what's their experience? And, time and time again, our experiences are not very good. So, do you want to be the first person they contact when somebody says, our chatbot sucks, you sold it to us, right? Or is there something out there and we're just on the edge of creating truly amazing and spectacular products? Are you the one to be able to go out and do that? It might be the case. So this is AI generated fruit, which I just literally, it was one of the first 3 images that came up when I said fruit. I don't know what the hell it's supposed to be, but there you go. But when you think about your strategy, I do believe helping your clients become comfortable with OpenAI, become comfortable with DALL-E, become comfortable with the Microsoft products and the Adobe products. It's really super easy. You can go take a class, teach a class, take a class, teach a class, help them to build outlines and lists, encourage them not to let ChatGPT write a chapter or a page or a book, for goodness sake. They will be very, very sad with the results, and it will not represent them well. It might someday, but not today, not in 2024. Again, keep your eyes open. I don't think that we've seen the killer app. It might be chatbots. Most people I know are quite dissatisfied with their experience of chatbots. And so unless you change the experience to something very different, it's probably not going to be that. But at the end of the day, just learn it enough so that you recognize the goodness when it magically shows up. So Jim says, I've been using ChatGPT to write pitches, 6 so far, every one of them signed. It's got a better sales average than I do. Well, that's excellent. So again, that's the kind of thing, if that's your victory story, Jim, go with that and begin modeling. Why did this one work? Like, what are the differences between them? And if you have 6 that didn't work, compare them. Like maybe even say, here's 6 that didn't work and 6 that did. Tell me why these 6 are better than those 6, right? Ask a more sophisticated question. I will also say, if you're really good at sales, don't use AI to push your sales because you're already better than average, and it is more likely to push you towards the median, right? So if you're bad at sales or you don't like sales, or like me, I'm inexperienced with it. I don't like sales, so I don't do a lot of it, right? So I'm quite reluctant to try to write my own stuff. Well, fine. ChatGPT can move me up in the food chain, right? But if you're really good at sales, use it for something else, right? Maybe you're good at sales, but you're not good at making presentations. Great. Use it to help you with the presentations, right? Wherever you are above the mean, use it less. Wherever you're below the mean, use it more, right? So unfortunately, we're being offered AI everywhere all the time. And a lot of it is not AI. A lot of it is really bad predictive text. I don't know about you. I hate predictive text. I know what I want to say. I know what the next word is. Some people really, really like it, right? If you don't know how to say something, let AI give you a first draft. If you do know how to say something, don't use it, right? So a lot of times it's not very useful, but it's being offered. So just be super aware of it. I would say if you are building something like an AI chat tool, um, remember you're going to take pre-programmed information, you're going to add client information, and the two of them are going to become that unique product, which is good for one iteration, one training. It's not going to continue to learn unless you step back, retrain it, re-add either information from the inside or information from the outside, and then take it to the next level, right? So there's less programming in using something like this than if you needed to learn computer programming or coding. One of the big announcements from Microsoft is that um, their scripting, VBscript, is going to go away by the end of the year. Okay, well, if that's what you've been relying on, today is a good day to let AI show you how to do coding in another language or another scripting, right? So, just be aware of that. And in terms of adopting AI, understand really what it is and what it isn't. Try to understand where that line is. There is no genius here. There's no brilliance. There's nothing that's so amazing that it's beyond your capability, right? Does it improve the process or does it make it worse? All right. Does it save money or, does it save more than it costs, right? At least that. If you're going to go to a client with something, go to your friendliest client, go to somebody who loves you, start small, get buy-in from the top down, be aware of the ethical side of things. I don't think that's going to be a major issue for us in our business, but I don't know that. And, just be, have your eyes open. And just remember, this is like anything else. It's going to start here and it's going to continue on for the rest of your career. So it's going to be a piece of what you do from now on. And understand that, it's going to be different and better next year. This presentation is now officially obsolete because it's been done, right? There's no way that you would download this a year from now. I hope you find some value in it today, but a year from now, you'll be on to something else. And remember, the secret of all teaching is you just have to stay one step ahead of the students. So uh, you go out and you learn a little Copilot today, and then you teach little Copilot. You learn a little more Copilot, and then you teach a little more Copilot, right? On and on and on. You have the aptitude to stay ahead of your clients. And so you have the ability to learn before they do and learn at a deeper level than they will understand at first blush. And therefore, you can always stay ahead of them and be their resource. And I know that some of you have done this with regard to graphics and technology and computers and, everything in your business for the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, right? So this is just one more thing. It's just another opportunity. And I encourage you to have zero fear. But remember, there's a lot of work here. And too many people are lured by the idea that, oh, AI is going to make all the work go away and I can outsource my job and sit on the beach and, be Tim Ferriss and whatever. Like that is happening for 1 out of 1 million. And so, unless you're a 1 out of 1 million person, hey, good for you. I wouldn't count on it. So, um, now, as you know, I don't have any sponsors. No vendors are paying for this. I'm trying to provide something useful. I hope I've done that. If you haven't checked out the Small Biz Thoughts technology community, I encourage you to do so today. And with that, I am open to any questions or comments that you have, including, criticisms. I'm cool with that. All right. Anybody? Anybody? I'm going to drink some coffee and wait for questions to flow in. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. So thank you all. I appreciate your time. I'm going to go ahead and get this recording up as quickly as possible. And thanks, Paul. I appreciate that. You will get a link with the PowerPoints in both PDF and in PowerPoint format. There's a license agreement there that basically allows you to, you know, you got to be careful with the graphics, make sure you're legal, blah, blah, blah. But all of the content I've created, you are absolutely welcome. All of the quotes where I have attributed them, you're welcome to use as long as you attribute them as well. So stay within the law, but take it and use it. And, with luck, you'll go make a bunch of money. All righty. Thank you all. See you later.